Welcome, guys, to our first episode. This is Second Opinion with the Pro Sports Doc. I'm Dr. Dhokal.
I'm Dr. Glass.
And we're here today to break down all things sports injuries, weekly football matchups, and entertaining stories from our career and our background and experience being chiropractors and sports med practitioners to professional athletes, pro sports teams, and working professionals alike. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Dustin. I know you made a long drive down from LA, Irvine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and this is good to go.
A little background. Dustin and I went to chiropractic school together, and we've been good friends ever since the early 2000s, and I have not seen you since pre-COVID.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Too long.
Too long. We talk often.
It's funny, though, right when you met me in the parking lot, I mean, it felt like old times, so that was kind of a good sign, right?
You're picking me up for class. Yeah. You're like, I'm on the side of the road.
We're already giving each other
You're about to cross the street. You're on the wrong side. But it's good to see you. This is a good excuse to do a couple things, in my opinion. One, have some time to spend with you and chop it up. My memory is pretty good, but I was telling somebody earlier today that sometimes the weeks and the seasons go by so quick that I'm just on repeat. It's like Groundhog Day, and it takes somebody to say, hey, do you remember that trip in New Orleans where such and such? And I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. So you're one of those guys who kind of shakes my memory a little bit and reminds me of things. I think you have certain little gems and moments, and I do too. So this is a good opportunity for us to share stories and connect. But also, I think we both discussed wanting to film some content and educate people on all sorts of different stuff, but mainly around sports medicine, mainly around pro sports athletes and how they deal with their day-to-day bumps and bruises, how they deal with major injuries, their off-season protocol. I mean, essentially stuff that you and I used to talk about in school, but there wasn't that content out then. We were just scrapping, looking for something, to get a little tidbit of knowledge. So I hope that we're able to at least impart that upon any listeners that are out there or may come in the future. I know that when I have a tough case, I can come to you, and it's nice to break it down with somebody that I consider an equal, to get someone else's opinion. And that's why we call it Second Opinion too, because we have a lot of professional athletes that have their team doctors, maybe their own personal doctors, but sometimes there's, how should I put it, maybe not in alignment with the team physician's main motivation. Is it aligned with the team or is it aligned with the player? And so not being affiliated with any teams myself, I always try to stay objective and give the player what I think is best. And that doesn't always align with what the team says. You have more experience having been on several teams in a more official capacity. So I'm really interested in learning and hearing about your experiences on the other side of that,
Yeah. No, I think I'm glad we're doing this. I think, what was it, a year ago, almost to the month, we talked on the phone, and that was during a dark period of my time, and we just started rapping and talking, and kind of we wanted to give more to our profession, to the people out there, and we were trying to figure out, there's more to it than what we do on a day-to-day work basis. And I think that was kind of the catalyst to, hey, let's get our voice out there. Let's get some content out there. So not only can we help others, we can help ourselves in getting caught up and talking about the things that are important to us, and hopefully we can help future generations too. So
it's all about education, right? Yeah. I mean, I think the more you know, whether you're someone sitting at a desk for your job or whether you're, making money with your body, playing professional sports, the more you know, the better you are, the better decisions you can make.
And I think that's where we've done really well. I mean, we both have 20 years of experience in this industry, sports medicine and performance care, and I think we have a lot to offer based on experience. And I think it'll be good to get that out there and and see where it goes.
I think, before we get too far out, I don't want to go too in depth or too many layers deep on, the nerdy nuances of your experience or mine for that matter. But I'll probably leave some stuff out. But in short, I know when we went to school, we graduated, and then I know since then you've worked with the Dodgers, the LA Dodgers. You've worked with the Anaheim Ducks. You've worked with the LA Lakers. You've worked with the women's Olympic volleyball team. Is that correct?
Men and women's indoor team. Yep.
And probably some other stuff that I've left out. But it all started being back in San Jose with like a adult rec league football team. I remember being in class.
San Jose Raiders.
San Jose Raiders. That's what they were called. That's right. Yeah.
I got pictures. We see. Dig those
they
up.
Might have been almost as good as the Oakland Raiders those couple of years.
It was pretty bad.
But they were, I think, maybe police and firefighter. Like it was like one of those types of leagues, and we
just a bunch of guys that loved to play and wanted to get out there, and we'd go out there and tape up and
we were like kind of trainers on the side. But that was more of the fun kind of first experience outside of class, where it's like, okay, this is hands-on, and that just reinforced that I was like, okay, I want to do this. So you have plethora of experience.
Well, let's go back to that. So San Jose was a big pivotal point for me in my career, because not only did we do the San Jose Raiders and basically a beer football league, but then one day you called me up, and I'm sure you remember this story, and this is at least my version of it. I get a call from you and say, hey, San Jose SaberCats, the arena football team, are having a tryout.
That's right.
And I think you're crazy. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, those days are gone. We're not trying out.
There was probably a 10% thought in my head where I was like, well, maybe
it's open tryout.
Yeah, maybe I'll throw the ball when it comes to me, and they'll be like, dang, bro, you got an arm.
So you all know, listen, hear me out. So you called the trainer, you talked to the trainer and said, hey, if, can we come out and at least shadow you and just be part of the, locker room and learn from you guys and learn what you do, and he said yes, and then you drug me over there, and then we spent a couple seasons doing that, and that was good. We were in the locker room, just kind of flies on the wall. We couldn't do much as interns. It was
fun too, though, right? It was just fun to be around the game.
100%. For us, selfishly, that's what I think. I just wanted to be around the pro, 100%. Athletes and be around and be a fly on the wall, But we ended up helping. We did a lot of dirty job picking up, bloody towels, snot rags, and
it was
just
kind of trash work.
Oh, we were totally grunting work. We were the bottom of the barrel, but
how fun was that?
Yeah, but we got to listen in on how. This is what I look back on. We got to listen in. The orthos were there, the internists were there, their chiros, their massage therapists. They were, and then we got to learn how it all interacted as a fly on the wall in the corner.
Totally,
because we weren't allowed to do anything.
We had
as
no
students.
pressure.
We couldn't do anything as students except the grunt work. So we got to listen on how the interaction, and then how sometimes the orthos talk bad on the trainers, and how the trainer, not specifically with that training, but we learned the dynamics of what the sports medicine team. It wasn't talking trash, but you know what I mean. Like
no, but that was like the first
difference of opinions or
it,
something.
Right? Yeah.
It wasn't talking trash, but more difference of opinions. And it was like, man, I thought everybody was on the same team, but you learn really fast that no, like the trainer's going to say one thing, and then you put the athlete involved with it, and the athlete's pissed off because the doc's saying one thing, trainer's saying another, and
he might feel something different.
Yeah, and the strength coach is saying another, and then the athletes all know, I just want to play and get paid. So that was something that was like the catalyst for me with really learning, man, there's more to it than this, and how can we interject chiropractic into that?
Yeah.
And because it wasn't really a big thing. I mean, remember Dr. Hickey was like the Olympic guy.
Yes.
And I remember in his lecture telling us all the cool things he did as one of the first chiros in the Olympics. I remember going to him in his study hours and telling him I was going to do just what he did plus more. Mm-hmm. He basically laughed at me, and
he did. Huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I walked up to his room and told him. It's one of those moments where you're like, I'm just going to throw it all out there.
Yeah. And
I did. He laughed at me and said, whatever. And he was his type of personality, but it was all good. I was determined I wanted to be that guy. And so I think, but those little stepping stones, you look back on and like, okay. So moving forward, like when I came down, so I did that for a couple of years with the SaberCats, moved down.
After graduation, you mean?
Well, yeah, after graduation, but we had that little in-between time where we weren't licensed, so we had to do our boards and do all that. So we had this period of time, our post-septorship. We couldn't make money.
Some of our in-between times are longer than other people's in-between times.
We were not talking about that. It's more seasoned. Some of us just needed a little more.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Wanted a little more. But how it worked for me was got down to Anaheim, right? Or got down here. I needed something to do. So I looked up the LA team, contacted them. They didn't know me from anybody.
Right.
So what they did was called San Jose. Steve, I don't know if you remember Steve, the trainer, and Steve vouched for me and said, "Oh yeah, good guy. He worked hard," because that's what we did. We worked hard while we were there. And then LA gave me a shot. Said, "Hey, come down, intern." So I interned there, and then sure
LA.
enough,
When you say
LA Avengers. So the arena team at that time, which was at Staples Center. So
that's right.
The docs in there were the Dodgers doctors and the Lakers docs. So we had the ortho, the internist, the dentist, all part of the Dodgers and Lakers.
So it was relationships.
And so I got to meet, be around, and again, part of that relationship, but as an intern. And then as soon as I got my license, about a year later, after I started all that, they asked me to sign my first contract. And that was the first, okay, but it was all based on the relationship from San Jose, just doing grunt work and back then collecting business cards, holding on to them.
Sure.
And I think that was part of it. And then it just snowballed, and then Anaheim, the Ducks needed somebody, and the Ducks guy called the Dodgers guy, ortho. So the internist for the Ducks called the ortho for the
and he knew you
Dodgers.
from the Avengers.
That guy said if I had somebody up here, it'd be Dustin. And then so they called me sight unseen.
Yeah.
And that's how the Ducks thing got. So again, it just trickled down. Same with volleyball, same with all these, and then the KISS and all, all these things was just word of mouth, but it was all started from us doing grunt work with no expectations except just wanting to help and be. So,
I mean, I remember those days, Dustin, and the best part of my day was going to the facility and doing that grunt work, picking up in the locker room or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm being quite honest, if I look at it in retrospect, and if I had any sort of ego with it, or if I wasn't with you, I think I'd be like, this is so below me,
Right.
I'm in graduate school. I'm going on my 9th year of college now, and I'm over here doing stuff that I was doing back in high school, definitely in college, but it didn't feel that way. It was like, I was excited because I think I came across his name in some little grocery store publication where they had an ad, and it had I don't even think I Googled his name, it was early 2000s.
Yeah,
so
I don't even think that was a thing. We didn't. I think you just cold called.
But yeah, just kind of cold called him, and it worked out to where.
But it's just weird in hindsight, looking back, how it all kind of. So that's one thing I tell.
We could have bailed on that, we could have been after 2 weeks if you would have been like, man, this sucks, P.
Picking up tapes, dirty sweat towels. Come on,
yeah,
guys throwing towels.
And if you would have cut, I probably would have followed suit too. Honestly, I would have been like, God,
we were in it
this
together.
Is not
it was
cool.
It was fun
to do by yourself,
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I even though we haven't seen each other a lot, obviously we've been in touch. Sometimes not for months. Sometimes I bet we've even gone over a year between contact. Sure. But through social media, I've always followed you, right? And I'm seeing, oh man, Dustin's doing stuff with the Dodgers now. Oh man, he's doing stuff with this team. But also, you're kind of like me in the sense that you're a little bit quiet about it and undercover, and maybe it's just our age. I'm in my mid 40s, and I didn't grow up with a cell phone in my hand, and a lot of the reasons actually I take pictures is because of a story you told me during one of our football trips in Cairo school, where I was like, yo, Dustin, why do you always have a camera? This guy always had a camera with him, all the time, and it wasn't like some digital zoom. A lot of time it was some disposable junky camera, but you told me a story that was personal to you, and I'm like, yo, we got to capture these memories because either you forget or, time passes, right? And so I've always been cognizant since you shared that story with me to capture, not for the gram. Sometimes I take a pic and I tell my friends, or if it's an athlete, hey, this is just for keeps, this is so I can remember it. This isn't so, I can get somebody to double tap it, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
But with the people that you've worked with, I always kind of admired that, I'm like, you're about the work and not about the other stuff that comes with it,
Yeah.
I think that's important. And I think that's something that people appreciate, but I think that's something that people feel even if they don't know it, if I introduce you to somebody that I work with, one of my athletes, or even a family member or something, your energy is that of not, I'm trying to get something from you,
right,
but what can I give to you?
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's got to be genuine, and
genuine.
it's got to come across that. People can sniff out bullshit really fast, you know, and that's what I always remember, you know, like people read each other really well, and I want to come across as, hey, I'm here to treat you as a person, and I think that's with respect, right? And I think that's how we get our foot in the door too, like because people know that we're not out there taking pictures every day unless they want it or they want to give us permission. Then it's a different story. But we're in it for them, right? Because they're people just like everybody else, and because we're not out there talking about every little thing, we get the calls, you know, and I think that's huge. And it might be our age, like you said, but I think that's our personalities too. We're here to treat them as people and get them well.
Well, you have a skill set, and you know, I do as well, and I'm trying to get better at that. You know, I don't think I peaked when I graduated or 5 years ago. And so, you know, that's something that I know that's how you feel as well, to continually get better. And, you know, everyone has a skill set. Everyone has a craft or something that they do. This is what I do. That's what you do. And so, I mean, I want to be one of the best at it. You know, I want to continue to get better. I'm definitely better, you know, chiropractor. I'm a definitely better diagnoser. I'm definitely a better referrer to other practitioners if I don't know what is going on. You know, I think that's probably one of the things that I'm excited about with this Second Opinion podcast is we help people all the time. I know through word of mouth. I work mainly with the local Southern California team, the Chargers. That's where most of my clients have come from in the last 10 years. And players leave, right? They get traded. They'll take better contracts. And so through word of mouth, like you said, or in the off season, I've treated players from probably half the team, maybe 3/4 of the teams in the league. And, you know, that referral, word of mouth is important. I kind of went off track on what my main point was there, but I think, what I was going to say was what I'm excited about is I've had people that I didn't know before that reached out and they said, oh, you know, so-and-so, like they told me about you. And what do you think about this? I'm like, give me some background. They'll say, I got hurt this way. Maybe the team doctor says this, or my personal physician says this. And it's something that interests me, something that I really enjoy doing is trying to help figure out that puzzle for somebody and maybe give a little more objective, non-biased insight. And I tell patients when they come into the office all the time, like, if this isn't the place where we can help you, I'm pretty sure I can get you to the place where you can be helped, you know? So if people are listening to this and they have something that's bothering them, you know, they can always do a FaceTime consultation. And, you know, we know people in multiple states. And if not, we've spent a long time developing a network, and we can always help you find somebody who is the right person. Because I feel like that's the biggest obstacle for most people is like, who do I go to? Does anyone know what is going on with me? Right. Whether you're a pro athlete or not, you know, they have people who are telling them, and I've had people, you know, say, is this person telling me the truth 100%? Right. You have doubts, you know, you're injured, you're in a different state of mind. Maybe you're uncomfortable because you haven't been in that place before, you know? So
I think being in the position that we've, you know, been fortunate to be in with the teams, with the entertainers, with that, in that world has given us that, we're more trustworthy, so people can give us a call. You know, I don't know if we're more trustworthy, but the perception is, well, if you work with that, and that, then you must be good at what you do, or you must, you know, be somebody that we can trust. So having that network, like you said, if it's not us, let us, you know, find you somebody.
A little off topic, but was that weird to you? I remember the first time, you know, I was so used to when I started my practice, explaining things a lot and making sure people understood why we were doing what we were doing. Yeah. And I remember at one point in time, someone came in and they said, oh, well, like they didn't even really want an explanation. They were just like, oh, if you work with so-and-so, then like, I'll just lay down and do what you do. Yeah. And I was like, that's weird a little bit, you know, because I wouldn't do that with my health, but I get it, you know, I do get it. And I appreciate the trust, you know, I don't take it for granted at all, but, I don't know where that stems from, but was that weird for you?
It was
or has
very
that
weird
ever
because
happened?
both of us are we like educating people and want them to understand it's their body. They're the one living with it 24/7. They should know what's actually going on, and nobody normally takes the time to do that. We actually sit down with our patients. We actually educate on what's going on.
Try to at least.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So at least make it a little more sense. But so when somebody comes in and says, I don't care, just fix me, doc, then it's really got to flip my hat and be like, okay, because of that reason, right?
Right.
If they already come in knowing that, okay, if you work on so-and-so, you got to be good. Let's just do this. You don't have to explain. And I think there's the fine line between, sometimes people think, well, are you educating me or are you trying to sell me on something? And
Right.
there's a fine line of that, because I really go out of my way not to be that used car salesman going, yep, so
there's been times with athletes that I've just stopped explaining stuff because I don't, maybe I've built a relationship up, but I also don't want to sound like, oh, here's every little nuance and, oh, I know everything about it and this is what I'm doing and this is how I helped you. Yeah. It's like, maybe you just want to relax today for an hour and think about nothing or something else that's going on in your life, and you don't want to hear me yapping while I'm working on you. And my metric for measurement is, do you feel better the next day or right after? And sometimes that's enough, you know?
Well, that's funny. How many times have you had an athlete fall asleep on your table while you're working?
All the time.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
People don't even believe that. Like, and if they knew who we worked on and they're like, really? They fell asleep? Yeah, because we're not talking about it anymore. They just got from the training room or from the field, from ESPN. It's constant in their mind.
Yeah.
So the last thing they want to do is talk about the game. I hardly ever talk their business when they come in unless they bring something up.
Sure.
Other than that, it's how's your family? How's it going? What's going on? Okay, lay down, and then they're out, and that's awesome.
They probably appreciate that too, because 100%. It gives them an unplug.
100%. And that's why they keep calling and keep coming back, because they know the expectation is I don't have to BS with this guy and just talk shop when I'm living it. Why do I want to talk it, right?
Totally.
Unless they want to talk about a game or something, then I'll be all for it.
But sometimes, you develop a convo or some rapport, but you also don't want to make someone feel like they have to be friendly and then all of a sudden entertain you when you're there, honestly, for a service. Yeah. You're there to provide a service, right? Or at least that's how I feel. So we're just speaking about, our background, our careers, trying to give you guys a little bit of an idea of why we do what we do. I'm super passionate about sports and athletes, in particular football, and getting people better. And my good friend Dustin Glass that I met in chiropractic college, we've shared the same kind of passions and have kind of had parallel career paths. And it's been good for me to bounce some things off you. I know there's been a few times with particular work situations where I'm like, who can I turn to? I can't just call my colleague who, I don't want to say has just, a regular kind of 9 to 5 type of job, because I don't feel like mine's a 9 to 5 or yours is, I'm working weekends, flying late, early, making home visits all the way up to LA. I know you travel a lot as well. And so if you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you're definitely not going to be doing it very long. Right. And so I feel super lucky to be in the position where I ended up doing what I really enjoy doing, and part of that is because when I needed that push through school, you were able to make sure I wasn't lagging too much, so I appreciate all those years and studying and long hours,
Yeah, no, I think we both,
it paid off.
Yeah. I think we fed off each other and got what we needed out of each other throughout the years, at the right times.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Definitely.
It wasn't easy for me, the school part of it, at least. Yeah. But I always kept the end in mind, in the sense of I knew what I wanted to do, which was to be in sports medicine and work and help athletes be better, whether that was at the high school level, the thought was hopefully at the professional level. So I definitely had those thoughts. It wasn't just a freestyle, but I do feel like I kind of got lucky into it. And at some subsequent episode, I'll tell that story about how I ended up getting into the NFL and working alongside, some of the best athletes in the world. I get asked that, often. And,
well, I think that's not to interrupt you, but I think your story is very important for people to hear. So I think at a later episode, we should definitely do that. A little teaser there, because
Yeah,
it is
no doubt.
important. And I'm a firm believer, and we've talked about that, you know, things don't happen to us, they happen for us. So, which in your case, there was a lot of trials and tribulations that, you know, it's hard to think about that when you're going through it. But look at where you're at right now. And you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, you're here because of all that. If it would have been different if you took a different route, you know, so.
Most likely. In fact, I can guarantee probably it would have been, you know.
So.
And I appreciate it more now. And it's nice that you remember those days, you know. It's nice to connect with people that you took that journey along with, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a straight path. It was more uphill. And, you know, in getting, you know, since we're talking about athletes, since we're, you know, a sports medicine podcast, you know, to summarize why we decided to even start a podcast, the whole market, some people might say, is super saturated with everyone talking about their likes or, you know, their skill set or whatever it may be. This is what I do, right? This is what you do. So it's what I have to offer to the world, is what I've studied for 20 some years professionally and a decade plus before that. And it's going to be fun to kind of break it down. But I think our intention is to break down sports medicine injuries, in particular with the NFL season. We're going to be here weekly to talk about whatever injuries may have occurred the week before, how that might have implications on the upcoming games. For those of you who are fantasy fans, maybe how that might have fantasy football implications. But also on a deeper level, to break down these injuries or situations that may happen on a little bit of a deeper level, maybe a level that I would explain to a patient, you know. Not that anything we say here is medical advice. I don't know what kind of legal disclaimers, you know, we need, or my attorney friends would be like, you need to state this. We can have that as a overcover or something, you know. Sure. But what I mean by that more is I want to be able to explain to our audience on a deeper level anything that we see on TV that happens that, you know, maybe in the realm of injuries or concussions or anything like that, versus just what you normally get. Oh, it's a hamstring pull, out 4 to 6 weeks, and that's all you hear, you know. Well, what muscles are the hamstrings? Is it one muscle? Is it multiple? What does it mean? Is there severities or are there grades? Like every athlete I've worked with, you know, I've told them, man, you went to school for at least 1 year in college, probably 3 or 4 if you're playing football. And so you got a degree most likely. And if you didn't, you at least worked towards a degree, right? The average NFL career is 3 or 4 years. I should be able to give you at least a minor in human anatomy and physiology and kinesiology if we're spending time together. Now, I've worked with clients and athletes who are just like, do your work, and I can feel the vibe. So I just shut up and, you know, do the best I can and focus in on what I'm doing and make sure that that person feels better by the time my hands are off of them. And that's good too. But I've also built relationships where players are interested in learning about their body. They've never maybe taken a science class, or they've never, you know, and I tell them like, hey, this is your livelihood. If you know about your body at a deeper level than just, you know, when you were in high school or college where you took the trainer's advice or the team doctor's advice, that's going to be beneficial for you, you know? And I don't see why there isn't a reason why all pro athletes, if you spend 4 years in any professional league, you spend 5 years, you're playing in some professional sport for 10 years, man, if you don't know the ins and outs of sports medicine and that's your job, either you're being paid very, very, very well and you don't really care, because if you get hurt, you're set for life. But, you know, I'd say 90% of people are grateful to be where they're at, and nothing's guaranteed, right? And even if you make $1 million a year, you make $10 million a year, it seems as though, you know, everyone needs that next paycheck, right? And so I just think that there's enough time, if you're an athlete, to really, like I say, get a minor in anatomy or a minor in your body. And I'm hoping that our audience over the years, over the seasons, will become more seasoned in their own health. This isn't just like a football podcast per se. It's a sports medicine podcast, if I was to summarize it to somebody, but it's also an educational podcast. You know, I taught in college. I was dean at a college. My mom, you know, taught in high school and elementary. So I feel like I have a little bit of an educational background. I bring that to what I do on the daily, where I talk to patients. I try to educate them, not just make them feel better. I think that's important, you know? And so that's what I would wish for our audience, is that they, you know, on the fun tip, let's talk about sports injuries. Let's talk about how that affects the game. Let's talk about how that might affect your fantasy football team. But on a deeper level, let's also learn something. And if you're an athlete and you're a young athlete, this would be a great time where you can start to bank some tips. You can start to learn some things that is going to pay you dividends in the future. You know, I wish I had that, you know. I was just like messing around, self-taught, trying to emulate people I saw on TV, and there was no instruction. And I feel like we live in a golden time right now, where if you want information, man, it is out there. You can find anything you want, you know, whether it's from people like us or people who, you know, are talking about some other topic because they have that experience or knowledge. So I'm excited for the next 17 weeks of the regular season and the next 4, 5, 6 weeks of the playoffs, all the way until February. This is my 12th season working with NFL players and an NFL team. And so I kind of grown accustomed to the routine of the weekly grind of it, you know, where come week 5, week 6, I feel like things start to go into a blur, and it's like, oh shoot, it's Halloween. Oh, it's Thanksgiving. It's my birthday. It's Christmas. It's New Year's. It's playoff time. And it goes by really quick. And I've used this time, which is also something I want to talk about in another episode perhaps, but about building habits with things that are your daily routine. So for me, when football season starts, like this is week 1 of the football season, I've, you know, kind of already thought about 2 or 3 things that I'm going to, you know, I want to say improve, but in all actuality, implement into my new weekly routine. So week 1, week 2, it's going to be harder to grind into some of these new micro habits. But by week 7, week 8, it's just going to be a routine. So for me, I'm really excited. I look forward to football season. I feel like it's a 5 or 6 month period of time where I can hyper focus and hyper improve my learning, my own personal stuff, and my focus and drive. It's a good time to practice your focus. You know, that's one of the things that I enjoy about practice is every 15 minutes I have a patient coming in, or sometimes it's a half hour, or with our athletes I spend an hour or 90 minutes. But life's chaotic for everybody, you know, and it's been chaotic for me at some points in time. And one of the things that I pride myself on is flipping that switch and just being focused. Like when I'm with a patient, I'm with a patient, you know, I'm dialed in. And I know you're that way too. And so I'm excited for these next, you know, whatever it is, 20 weeks during the season. And then in the postseason, we'll still have weekly episodes just talking about different topics that are pertinent, you know, at the time. But hopefully our audience learns a little bit this season. Hopefully on the entertainment side, I'm really excited to hear a few of your stories over the years. Just selfishly, you know, like I want to know where you've been traveling, you know, what you've been doing with the Dodgers. Was it boring being with the baseball team? Because sometimes I think it might be, you know. I want to hear about the Avengers, you know, after the SaberCats. I want to hear about the stuff you did with the Lakers and how that was transitioning from, you know, maybe baseball to a whole different sport, right? Our bodies feel different. I'm used to the football body. I'm really, really used to, if you tell me what position you play, I kind of already know what your body feels like. I've treated all the positions, the D-lines, the linebackers, the receivers, the quarterbacks. Everyone's body has nuances. And so when I've had a few hoopers come in, when I've had a few baseball players come in, it's different, you know? And you have that experience of like whole team baseball, whole team basketball, whole team Olympic volleyball, right? And so I'm really curious to learn from you about how those different athletes, you know, maybe differed in attitudes or how the bodies felt, or how maybe the same injury amongst a different sport, did that make a difference in healing time or any of those things? I have a deep bag of questions that I'm looking forward to knocking out, you know, without boring people or boring, myself or you with the details. But, I think in all stories, there's a gem of learning, and I'm excited to hear some of your stories, and I'm excited to relive and talk about some of the interesting times that I've had traveling with an NFL team on the road and, seeing different cities, meeting different people. The world is big, right? And before I started doing this, I was pretty much a California kid, other than when we traveled for our little passing league in Cairo school, then that was fun too, just going to like Des Moines, Iowa, or New York or Dallas or something. So, yeah, man, I'm excited. What are you excited about this podcast for? Why did you want to do it? First of all,
I think you summed it up really well. I mean, not much more I can say about it. We talked, a couple months ago, and we both had a vision what we wanted to accomplish, and I think we both wanted to, if we were to leave this world tomorrow, what could we leave the rest? What can we leave? What could our legacy be? And I think both of us have 20 plus years of being in the trenches in a different realm from a lot of chiropractors in our profession, right? I mean, out of every team out there, there's only a handful of people that do what we do. And I think we have a unique perspective in that. And I want to, and we were talking about, okay, when we were students, because that's how we all got started. Me and you got started together, crunching notes, crunching, time, trying to figure out, is this what we want to do? How are we going to get through boards? How are we going to do all this? As a student, when you're in that, swim lane of trying to get your studies done, we didn't have anybody to lean on, There was a couple chiropractors with the 49ers or one, with the 49ers. There was a couple, Denver had a guy. There wasn't anything. Now there's a lot more out there, but nobody's really talking or sharing their stories from the trenches, right? And so that's what I want to bring that to it. And there's a lot of like TikTok out there. There's a lot of Instagram. There's a lot of douchey chiropractors doing douchey things right now, and that do not give our profession a very good look, right? And so that's one of my irks, and we both come from an educational standpoint. I helped teach the chiropractic technique at the college. You did, your thing with a couple different schools, and we both like to educate, and we take every moment we can to educate. And if we can, pass something on to the future generation about, what it's like, not just from a practice standpoint, but from a real world application standpoint. That's what I'm hoping that we can leave with them and kind of give the education that we wish we would have had from a more practical standpoint.
For sure.
And then, talk about some of these injuries. Talk about, our big thing is restoring function. If we can restore function, then the pain will go away, right? But a lot of times people come into the business. What brings people through the door is the pain. Why do they come to the training room in the first place? It's because they're hurting.
Right.
But our main goal is to restore function. If we can restore the function, then the pain shuts off if it's not an anatomical issue.
Yeah.
And that's what people lose sight of that. It's like treat the pain, especially when there's people like us.
Well, there's a duality there, right?
100%.
You get rid of the goddamn pain.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have function, and then you end up with a catastrophic injury.
And you see these guys on the IR week after week. Okay, they go 3 weeks, another week, and then in the paper and on the news, it's like, why do these guys keep getting an injury? And then it gets pointed at the sports medicine, the strength coach, boom, 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 boom. But if then me and because we're seeing them on the side, or and we have a different knowledge, is like, okay, let's work from the feet up, or let's work from this up. Let's look at the joints above and below, not just at the pain level. Yeah. So that's where I want to kind of use this podcast is like, okay, let's get the juices flowing outside the box, because we get set in this, like, okay, if this comes in, we have that algorithm. If this comes in, then you do this or this. Yes or no, go to the next box. Yes or no, go to the next box. And that's not the reality, right? I mean, that helps us learn it. But what I want to do is, one, for the student that might be coming up, but two, for the layperson too, that doesn't understand their anatomy. What I tell my patients is, you live with this butt. When the athlete comes in, 24 hours, you need to take ownership in this. 100%. Okay, you need to take ownership in it. So when you're at home outside of our training room or our treatment room, you need to be taking care of it. Okay, so there's no excuses not to get better if you have control. Control what you can control and don't worry about the rest. That's our theme, right? Like, so if you're injured and you can't can't do anything about that broken whatever or that strained whatever, then control the other aspects, your nutrition, your mindset, your physicality around the joint, right? So that's what I want to get people to start thinking about. Like, okay, it's not just pain, no pain. Okay, it's not black or white. Let's look above and below joints. Let's start figuring out and let's start resolving things. But it comes down to knowing your anatomy and your physiology and knowing it works, right?
Yeah,
and
either you got to have blind faith and just trust the person working on you, or that, and also educate yourself, right? Or get a second opinion or a third opinion, or, you know, there's a myth, right, that I had prior to doing what I do now, which was that, like, if you were a professional athlete, you had the best care in the world. You had the best care, and it didn't matter if you were on team A or team C. Surely you're owned by a real wealthy individual or individuals, right? And surely they have the best of the best. And man, one of the first things that I was dumbfounded on was like, how does a professional NFL team have less equipment, supplies, resources than some college teams? Like, when I learned that at first, and then I realized when I started having players go to different places, or players come in the off season, living in San Diego, players spend, you know, months of their off season here, and through referral or whatever, people would come in and I'd ask, well, what is the Bears sports med situation like? Or what is, take any team, for example, not to single anybody out. That was just random. But then to hear about the variance in it, I was like blown away, right? Because I'm like, you're paying, it just doesn't make sense to me. Knowing what we know, I'm like, that return on investment is like better than anything in the real stock market or crypto. Like, invest in your players, invest in your personnel, and the results will come. And so then sometimes when you look at winning franchises, it's not always a coincidence that they have some of the best, the means or sports medicine. And man, there is variance. When I have people that go to different teams, that's the first thing that I ask. And it still trips me out. You know, I mean,
I think we could use this podcast for that, but not to, like, we're not going to be blowing the cover on any teams or anything like that, but just to let people know that, hey, this is the reality. And the bottom line is you got to take ownership in your own body. So regardless of where you end up, whether you're a professional athlete, entertainer, or just, you know, a weekend warrior, and you go from one ortho to another ortho, and, you know, they're telling you one thing, you know, that's just their opinion. Okay. You have your own opinion, right? And just because a doctor says one thing, and if you don't like it, then move on and figure out until you find an answer you do like or that resonates with you, because that's going to be the best one for you. Right.
Let me ask you something a little bit random and off topic. Have you ever had, I'm sure you've had in a normal patient base, in our, you know, regular patient base, I guess I'll say, where maybe you care more about the patient's health than maybe they do, right? Where you say, gosh, you have this reoccurring thing. All you have to do is this 8 minutes a day of this thing, and this is going to help you 60%. You know, you're coming in hot every single time, and you could just put a little bit of effort on the daily and this will make a difference, you know? And then you kind of start to feel like, damn, do I care more about this patient than they care about feeling? Like sometimes you do, you know, being in our profession as chiropractors, sometimes people do want that quick fix where they're like, you know, my ankle hurts or my back hurts. I'd rather just pop a pill in the morning, have no pain all day because I have life to do rather than let me figure out why my back hurts or why this hurts and how to actually correct it or improve it. I don't always tell people, hey, we can fix this.
Right.
But man, I can't remember the last time we haven't been able to improve something.
Right.
You know? Yeah,
that's my, I want to, and that's what I tell people. I'll never promise anything, right? There's too many variables to promise. So I say, hey, we're going to maximize your full potential at this moment, because your full potential right now will be just to get you out of an ankle pain, get the swelling down, and get you to be able to walk without a limp. That's your maximum potential as of right now. But 2 weeks from now, you're going to have another maximum. And we want to get you to that potential. And then we keep trying for the next potential. But it's maximizing your potential. And eventually we'll get to as much as it can be. And then it is what it is. But it's going to be a lot better than it is now. That's what I can guarantee if you do work on it. But it's got to take ownership. You got to do your part. I'll do my part. I tell them it's just like a team, right? If I'm a coach and I'm telling you, hey, these are the plays that are going to work, and then you go go out on the field and just sit down and don't do them, then we can't win, right? But if I tell you, hey, as a doctor, this is what I think is going to do to work. You go home, do your part. I'll do my part, and then at halftime we'll come together. If it's still not working, but you've done your part, then we come up with plan B, C, or D until we find. But if you're not doing your part, then I don't know if it's because it's the plan that's not working or that you have an issue going on, right? Yeah. A different issue that we don't know. So you have to do your part. So that's why that's the big thing, right?
Have you ever felt like
too many patients want somebody else to do it something because that's our culture. They want you to fix it.
No, you fix it.
So in my treatment plan, I go over 3 things. 1, what's wrong? 2, can you help? And 3, how long is it going to take? And then 4, financially, what's your investment in health going to be? But the third one is, how long is this going to take? And can I help? Yeah, I can help, but it's more we can help. It's only going to get better if you do your part.
Yeah.
If not, then I'll do my job. And like you said, like sometimes they just don't want to have help. So we come to that agreement from day one. Like, listen, you just tell me if you don't, this is what I think you need, and this is what I think is going to do to get better. But if you tell me that you don't want that, then let's go to plan B, C, or D and figure out, and then come to agreement. And we'll shake hands and say, okay, you just want a quick rack'em and crack'em. Okay, adjustment. I referred you out to the joint. You know, you want, if that's what you want, that's fine, because that's their business model. They'll just do that. But if you want to try to figure out the problem so it doesn't come back, then I'm your guy. But if you tell me I don't want that, I'd rather you stay with me than go somewhere else, because I'll give you a better adjustment, in my opinion.
And it's about conversion too, right? So if a patient can't commit to X amount of time per day that you recommended, and they're like, hey, I'm only doing this 3 times a week versus 7, I'm not mad at you.
No, communicate.
I'm not mad at you, but that will change. You know, maybe if my expectation was a month, and if a month later you don't tell me that and you're not getting better, like I'm thinking about that when I'm on my walk, you know, with my dog. I'm like, man, that is not meeting. I'm used to converting, right? I'm used to, I don't want to say we're 100% with things, because that's impossible, but like my expectation is that. And so then I can taper that expectation and give more realistic goals for the patient. And then I find they're not upset. While you were speaking, I realized something that I don't think I've verbalized before, but I think I've known it. And it was just that maybe one of the reasons, outside the fact that I really love football, and I think football has been a core, like, you know, hub in my life that has helped me through, you know, through time, right? Through school, or helped me with developing relationships and friendships that are lifelong, right? So I owe a lot to the sport of football, even though it's just a sport. But I think maybe some of that is that some of these high-level athletes, right, you're highly motivated. So like, I was going to ask you the question, have you ever had a professional athlete that you felt like you were more invested than they were in getting better? That's my question to you. But before I have you answer that, I think maybe that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy doing what I do, because no matter what sport you come from, if you're at that elite level, you're used to performing, right? You're used to doing what the coach says. You're used to being the best at what you do. So if I tell somebody, hey, this is 2 to 3 weeks, they're already in the mindset of, hey, I'm going to be this in 1 to 2 weeks. And so I don't know if I ever connected the dots there. Maybe selfishly, it's fun to work with professional athletes because they're the most motivated, hardest working people out there. So that makes you almost look good. If they do everything that you say, you're going to have better outcomes.
Results, right?
You know.
100%.
But getting back to my question, have you ever felt like you were more invested in a player than they were themselves?
Man, I haven't dove into that.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I all the athletes I can think off the top of my head, I'm sure there has been some that really didn't care, but I think it's a resonation. It didn't resonate with us, so I didn't see them very long, right?
Yeah,
so
true.
Like if I know they're not, I'm not going to keep investing time in that, all, you know, if they're not going to give back, right? So that's probably why I don't think of any off the top of my head. Typically the ones coming to us or seeking us out are highly motivated. You know, again, we see a lot of second, third, and fourth opinions for that reason. So they're invested already. They want to figure it out just as bad as we want to help them. So
Interesting.
I'll let you know if one comes up.
Yeah. Well, I think
I'll be waking up at 3 a.m. going, oh yeah, that's the bitch. Yeah,
that's all right. What do you say we talk about the NFL season starting to come?
All right, let's do it. Yeah, it's
so
coming
today's
up
Tuesday.
Quick,
First game is Thursday in 2 days. We have kickoff, and it's the Bills versus the world champs, the LA Rams. It's hard for me to say
neighbors,
because, you know, I grew up a 49er fan, and I'm a Charger fan now, converted after, you know, a few years. It took me several years.
Wait, who'd you grow up with?
The 49ers.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I grew up with like Joe Montana,
I hated
Jerry Rice, and then when I was in college, the 49ers had their training camp at my college. So little skinny me worked security in the end zone for the San Francisco 49ers, and I had to like walk out Steve Young after practice, and I remember thinking, this guy's in pads and a helmet and towers over me, and I'm supposed to keep people away from him, you know? But, you know, those were little times.
Knowing that background, which I didn't know, I don't think we would have been friends if I would have known that, because I grew up with Rams tickets when they were Anaheim.
Gotcha.
You know, LA Rams down here.
Well, that's still an improvement off of,
you know, growing up 80s and 90s, I had the season tickets for that. And so if I would have known, we hated the Niners, so if I would have known that,
the rivalry is
different
deep.
Story,
Well, I've switched it. When I talk to my cousins, I say we, and they're like, it's not we. You keep saying we. You're they. We're we, you know?
One of the coolest moments in San Jose that I was driving to our campus, Jerry Rice was right next to me in his car, and that was pretty cool.
You see him on the freeway.
He said something on his license plate. It was like all hands or
Flash
something.
80 or something.
It was kind of fun.
So speaking about this week's games, I'm excited for the season to start. Obviously, the Rams won the Super Bowl last year. New season, new expectations. Everyone's, you know, high hopes, right? There's been a few injuries, a few teams that have lost some starters. We can get into some of those players and losses in our next episode next week. But our intention is to record every Monday during Monday Night Football. So we'll be talking about injuries while we watch the game, giving you some insight and some immediate short-term feedback on what we see on the TV, on the field in real time. And, you know, every week we'll discuss a couple injuries that may have, you know, jumped out, or some serious injuries if there's some big names that go down with something. But also talk about the games that are upcoming and ones that we're looking forward to. So a few on the schedule. You know, like I said, it's week 1. Everyone has high expectations. There's been a lot of movement. I'm not a, you know, football expert or a football commentator by nature or trade, but being a big fan and having played the sport a little bit and having been around the game, I do have opinions on it. And so we'll talk about those things. And with the games coming up this week, I'd say if I was to highlight 3, the Thursday night game, Rams versus the Bills, like I mentioned, to kick off the season, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. A lot of people think that the Bills are one of the premier teams in the AFC. The Rams obviously won the Super Bowl. There's probably 3 or 4 good teams on either side, in my opinion, that could win it all. And so that matchup intrigues me. The other 2 games that I was thinking about earlier today, one being the Chargers versus the Raiders. So the Chargers season ended last year against the Raiders in the last week of the season, where we lost in a wild game. We had some crazy finishes last year. And anyways, we lost. The Raiders went on to the playoffs, and they fell flat in the first round, and they ended up losing to Cincinnati. So that matchup will be interesting. That's week 1 in SoFi for the Chargers versus the Raiders division game. And the third matchup, of course, the GOAT, Tom Brady. Him and the Tampa Bay Bucks play this weekend, and I'm curious to see how they do. The Bucks have had some injuries on their O-line, which could make a big difference for Brady and how their offense performs in the season to come. But, you know, there's a lot of things that intrigue me with this football season, a lot of storylines, whether it's Baker Mayfield changing teams, any of these things. The reality is there's a ton of sports talk shows, right? I don't think we're a sports talk show. We're like a sports injury, informational, educational, entertainment show. And so we'll talk about all those things. But in short, I just want to get your quick take on who you think is going to win a couple of these games with, you know, just off the top of your head. So Rams, Bills, do you have a...
Well, yeah, I'm going with the Rams just because of my history with them. And I think the psychology behind that, coming off of, you know, the win, they have something to prove, that they're just not a, you know...
One-hit wonder.
One-hit wonder. So they're going to... So it'll be an interesting psychology. Are they going to come out showing everything they've got, or are they going to play it safe, you know? So I think it'll be an interesting matchup, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. A lot of talent.
And then 3 days later in the same stadium, then we play, the Chargers, I should say, play against division foes, the Raiders, which some people say the LA doesn't belong to the Rams or the Chargers. It belongs to the Raiders. And so that'll be an interesting,
super interesting
game one.
Raiders always, they have that little grudge too, but I think coming off of last year,
plus they picked up Devontae. They're going to be hot with it. Him and Carr being college teammates. I think that's super cool. Yeah. There's something about that I really like as a storyline of two young kids used to play in college, probably just like you and I, sharing a room, talking about, man, maybe one day. And now here they are in the league and they get to reconnect.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not a Raider fan. I grew up a Niner fan. Now I'm a Charger fan. Yeah. And so the Raiders are a team that, I respect, I suppose, as an opponent, but I don't necessarily like them unless I'm treating players. And then in which case I'm like, I really missed you and I like you and I wish you well and I hope you do well. Yeah. But also don't do too well against us, you know. So there is that as well.
I think the Chargers are going to have that memory. It's a long-term memory. I think they're going to have that memory from last year and bring it.
Do you think the Raiders are going to win then?
No, I think the Chargers. Did I say the Raiders? I meant the Chargers.
Yeah.
The Chargers will
exact a little revenge.
Yeah, I think and at home they have something to prove, and so
I'm curious to see what the split is fan-wise. Hopefully it's 50-50 Raiders-Chargers. Hopefully it's not like a 60-40 split, but Keenan had a quote on Monday night last year that I won't repeat, but we beat the Raiders on Monday night and he was juiced. Maybe we could find that clip, but he basically said, "Go home, we're here on Monday night," and that was pretty exciting. I could feel his excitement, on those primetime games. Which, speaking of, we play on Sunday against the Raiders, and then 4 days later we go to Kansas City for week 2. We're playing, the former world champs, the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City.
Next week we should talk about that. Yeah, next week we should talk about that. Yeah. How do you do that turnaround that quick? What do you do for prepreparation?
It's tough,
but so we should talk about that.
That's definitely something to discuss that I think is interesting as well. But and then
on that, Tom Brady. So that's talking about recovery time.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see every year. It's interesting to see what he's going to do and how he's going to bring it.
I appreciate Tom not because he's, he beat us a couple years ago. I was in Foxborough for a Chargers playoff game, cold as could be, with Boston fans who I love, sort of, a little bit, not really, and. Pregame we were talking back and forth a little bit, and I'm quiet. I'm like in the stands. I'm not on the sidelines, and I'm, hey, let's just see what happens. Hopefully you guys and they got after us quick. Tom Brady looked like he was playing a flag football game. Yeah. He was just walking, throwing completions. It looked like a walkthrough in our Cairo school days or something where it just, is he really playing against NFL? Yeah. I mean, he crushed us, and so there's nothing I could say. Yeah. I had to leave the stands and walk away because it got aggressive with those Boston fans. But what I appreciate about him is that he keeps winning, and he is probably the foremost person of something that we've been talking about for a long time before it got popular, which is pliability and the importance of getting your body ready or to its peak before you're injured, right? So like a preventative, or as I call like a prehab approach to it. And so I'm glad that he's successful. I'm glad he's winning championships on the account of he's doing something that I really believe in. It's not even like a belief. It's just like a scientific fact really that I think sports medicine hasn't caught up to, and so him and Alex Guerrero, they're doing a lot of things right, and I try to take that same approach. Excuse the sirens here. We're in East Village, downtown San Diego, and it gets real on the streets. But yeah, he's brought a lot of attention with his TB12 method, which is just a branding on, hey, let's keep your body balanced and let's keep your range of motion at its full potential at all times. And let's not bulk up with aggressive lifting that's going to tighten you up, which is going to lead to injuries, Right. I've taken one TB12 course, so I'm not like a TB12 expert. I don't claim to be, an Alex Guerrero understudy, although I'd love to meet with him and, even just to witness one of his sessions, because I think we have a lot of parallels in how we treat and belief systems. But I always appreciate Tom, except for when we play him, I mean, it's awesome too, because he's our age and he's still doing it. And I always tell people, I could tell you a little funny story where I went into the gas station the other day to grab something to drink, and the guy was talking to somebody in front of me and asked him how old he was. And, he was like old enough to buy liquor or whatever he was buying. And he's like, oh, you can never know. Like, I would card you. And I said, bro, I'm 45. I'm 46, actually. I stuttered. I almost said my wrong age. He's like, you're 46? He's like, bro, you look like 35. And I was like, obviously took it as a compliment. He was being kind of funny about it. But, he brought up Tom Brady, and this is like a gas station attendant who doesn't look like he's ever played sports or even watches sports. He's from another country, and he's like, man, like Tom Brady, you're young, And I had to go tell my wife that. I said, the guy in there said I was like Tom Brady in a way, And she said, maybe in like similarity in age, but that's probably where it went, where it stopped,
As far as it goes.
But even some random person, like he's a
Recognize
household
it.
name, right? And so maybe people just know that he wins championships, but what I appreciate is that he has this methodology of staying healthy, and it's worked. You can't avoid injuries in some sports, especially football. That's a contact sport,
Yeah.
But besides the broken bones, besides the catastrophic injuries or, the collisions, the concussions, you can prevent some other stuff, or at least minimize the severity if you do the right things.
That's the key. Yeah, and that's why I'm looking forward to talking. Next week will be a good opportunity after we see some of these guys get banged up. Hopefully not too bad, but then we can talk about the pre and post.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too, Dustin. It'll be good. I'm excited to get back in here on Monday night, catch that first Monday night football game of the year. We'll know who won that Bills game, Bills-Chiefs game. We'll have some completion on the other games of the week, and we'll be at the last game of the week when we meet next week. And, knock on wood, hopefully no one gets injured during the year. I'd actually like to go all 17 weeks without anything catastrophic, because we have plenty of topics we can talk about. Every week we'll talk about something outside the league as well. Maybe talk about a patient case or something. Just whatever I think is interesting that might be interesting, or a tidbit that, I might want to rap about with you. So I don't really have much more today myself, but is there anything you wanted to touch on, or anything I left out?
I'm just really looking forward to doing this with you. And like we talked about, selfishly, if nothing else, get to sit down in front of you after all these years and talk shop and share some wealth of knowledge. Hopefully if one person takes away something, I think we've done our job.
I'm looking to learn just as much as I am looking 100%. to teach.
And hopefully we
speak.
get to the point where we'll actually get people wanting to ask questions, calling, because that's how we can learn from each other. Absolutely. Or share their experiences, So that's what I really hope we can at least get to an audience where we start having some interaction, because that's where the magic will happen. Absolutely. Just like we're in just every 15 minutes or every time somebody comes in, we have an opportunity, a brand new opportunity to talk about something, even if it's the same genre. Yeah. It's different opportunity. So I'm really hoping this takes off, and we'll see. Time will tell, but if not, at least it gives us an opportunity to put it out there in the universe, and hopefully it catches one person's ear. Yeah, look, we have a team of people here. We're not the experts on doing this. I just speak on it, and so we'll be reading any comments and any suggestions or any questions you may have. We can definitely address those topics at subsequent episodes, but this has been fun, man. I appreciate you driving down. People don't know when you hit appointments. Sometimes it's a 2-hour drive. I think I've said to you before, man, if I had like $20 for every time I drove 2 hours for a 90-minute appointment, right? Like my wife will say, like, when are you coming back? And I'm like, well, just 2 hours down, 90 minutes work, 2 hours back. I'll see you in 6 hours, Right. So sometimes you can, book a couple at a time. It makes it worthwhile. But I know you're trekking down here and driving down to do this. So I appreciate your time. It's valuable. And it's fun, man. It's good to see you, of course. We'll chat more, rap more, and I look forward to episode 2 next week, Monday night. Yes. All right. See you then. Thanks, gang. Talk to you soon. Okay, sounds good.